distinct privilege to introduce my friend Glenn, who is doesn't have much experience with unreasonable dependency demands, but he's just devilishly handsome. So I thought I would put him on here, you know. So anyway, no, he's a great guy and got a great message. And I won't take up any more of your time. I appreciate your service, Glenn, and I hope everybody enjoys him as much as I do. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. I appreciate that. And hello, everybody. My name is Glenn Hadley. I'm alcoholic, and it's purely by the grace of God I'm sober tonight. And Sam, you know, it was funny. I was thinking about when, how long ago was it whenever we first tried to do this meeting on a Thursday night, like in person? Was it like 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was about maybe year and a half, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And we got together and I remember that first one. I think we tried to do a steel on steel with 10 guys. And that was an interesting night.
About midnight, everybody's like, you know, staring at the floor.
Yeah, I think some of the new guys had no idea what we were doing and were maybe a little bit appalled by the authenticity, and it got real. And it got real for a real long time. That was great, but it's really good to see this and see how the meeting has really come together and through all this stuff. And I just can't wait to see everybody in person and give hugs again. You know, when Sam asked me to come share on this, like you know, had a reaction, and so I do need to tell you guys that tonight I'm going to try not to try to get you to be impressed by me. I'm going to try to not try. So that is something that tends to come up in me, is whenever I get externally motivated by something or someone, I try really hard to get what I need from that person or that thing. So I'm going to try not to do that this evening and just try to be me. And I'm not I'd like to say I was a reformed big book thumper, but I was kind of a passive thumper. I would sit silently and judge you when you didn't do the things in the big book that were outlined by my sponsor, but I would never really tell you because I didn't want you to think poorly of me, you know? So I can't even really say I was a reformed big book thumper. But I have worked the 12 steps out of the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's definitely opened my eyes to a new way of life. And so this idea of emotional sobriety, you know, I was just talking on the phone right before this this meeting to a mom, and she was talking to me about her son, and she's like, you know, Glenn, I know I talked to you about 4 years ago, but I think that my son is ready, but I have a question, and I don't know which one comes first, and she's like, you know, he's using drugs and alcohol and this kind of thing, but I also know that he's suffering from depression. And she said, she's like, I just don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should like get him help for this, you know, for his alcohol use, or if I should get him help for his depression. And she asked my opinion, and you know, I was real nice and just told her kind of, you know, I think that we should, you know, deal with the alcohol use first and then get into the depression. But I just, you know, I sit back and I go, oh man, is that the tip of the iceberg or what? You know, like if I feel like if I sat down with her for, you know, a couple hours and really explained to her the depths of the issue, I think she might go check into treatment, you know? You know, there's this idea that's been running through my head, and I want to share it, and I'm sure I'll reference it again. I don't know why it's coming out now, but I'm sure it'll come up later. But this idea that I already am what I'm trying to be, and that has been something new for me, and that's been something that has been on my mind and been introduced to me lately. And so I just want to share that I already am what I'm trying to be. And that may be the most spiritual thing I say tonight. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I just got into Austin, Texas last night, kind of late. And I'm moving back down here from Boise, Idaho. And I think I need to tell you about this new 4Runner that I just got. So up there in Idaho, there's all these mountains and trails and God, I love to hike. I absolutely love being out in the mountains, hiking and riding around, and there's just something beautiful about it. And so last year, the car that I was using wasn't cutting it out there, and so I got a new 4Runner, and let me tell you something. This 4Runner is amazing. It is like my own little personal monster truck. I love taking that thing out out in the mountains, out in the desert, and doing all that stuff. And it's one of those that, like, you know, you got to help people up into, you know, it's like that. And man, I love that thing. And here's the thing about it. It's one of those new ones, and it's got these super bright lights. I mean, I'm telling you, like, the low beams on this sucker, like it'll light everything up like it's daylight outside. And the reason I tell you that is, so last night, get this, I'm coming into town, and I've been driving for a few days, and there's this little stretch between I-20 in Abilene, Texas, and Austin, Texas, and it's like the hill country. And during the day, it's beautiful. It's nice rolling hills and all that good stuff, if you can mind the windmills and all that. But at night, it is absolutely terrifying, because there are so many deer out there all over the place. I mean, hundreds of deer everywhere, you know, and so normally, like, whenever I'd be going through that, like, I'd be scared to death. But ever since I got this new 4Runner, let me tell you something, the lights, they just light everything up. I can see deer everywhere. I can see deer in the field over there, not even close to the road and all that stuff. But those lights pose a problem. And I think that's why I'm supposed to tell you this story, is that here's what I do. And this is not emotionally sober, but I'll share anyway. This is what I do. And this is just last night, right? So I know that along this road, I've made this run a couple of times, and along this road, whenever I have my low beams on, that some people that are coming in the other direction, they think I have my high beams on. You guys ever have that happen to you? They think that I have my high beams on, and so they will flash me. And this has happened a number of times. So here's what happens last night. Okay, last night I get to that stretch of road, and it's getting dangerously close for the sun to be down, and I turn my daytime running lights on. Then it starts to get a little bit darker, and so I turn my low beams on. No fog lights yet. And I'm tooling along this thing. Now, after I turn my low beams on, I immediately get ready. And I get ready kind of like I'm sitting now, like I'm in my chair, right in my seat, and I'm driving, and I'm like, I'm up a little bit, and I grab the wheel a little bit tighter. And I got my left hand just dangling right over my light thing. And you know what I'm waiting for, right? I'm waiting for the people coming in the opposite lane. And I'm waiting to see what they're going to do with my low beams. It seem like they're high beams. It gets a little bit darker. There's no one out there. So I flip my high beams on. And now I'm even a little bit more tense, right? Because I don't want the person that hasn't come over the ridge yet, I don't want them to think that I'm being inconsiderate. And so I'm ready again, and I see some lights coming up. And so here's what I do, is that I wait. And I wait till I see them just over the edge of the hill to where they can see me and see that I have my high beams on, because I need them to see that I have my high beams on before I turn them down to low beams. So I wait till they get over the hill, and I turn the low beams on. I don't take my hand off the light switch yet, because I'm waiting for them to flash me. Because you know what I'm going to do if they flash me, right? I'm going to flash them back. Because I need them to know, like I need them to know that it's not me. It's not me that's trying to blind them with my lights. It's just the way that I got the truck. I mean, it's those lights, and I really need them to know. So y'all, I played this game last night. I played this game for about 45 minutes, if I'm honest. And that's a stretch. This is a funny thing. This is why I stopped playing the game. I started to get a cramp because I'm squeezing the wheel so tight, right? Start to get a cramp in my leg because I'm like all like this, like. And the crazy thing about it is not one person came over that hill and flashed me the whole entire time. Not one. After about 45 minutes, I kind of started to laugh at myself and thought that was awfully funny. I started shaking it off, and I relaxed, and I leaned back in my seat, and I kept driving, and I thought that was just hilarious. That stuff that was going on in my head, that I was on alert, and I was ready in case someone was going to flash me. And I played all that stuff in my head. And by the way, while I'm laughing at myself and I'm laughing at the crazy games that are going on in my head, I forgot to turn my high beams off, and I flashed the guy that was coming the other way. No, I'm not well whenever it comes to that. I'm not. Like, I've got so much that goes on in my head, and so many emotions and so many feelings and so many distractions that go on in my head whenever I'm just sitting still, not doing anything. And I think one of the symptoms of my alcoholism is that whenever I feel those things, no matter what those things are, I need to change that. I need to change the way that I feel. And alcohol definitely allowed me to do that, for sure. You know, I've done a lot of work around that conversation, around those games that my head plays, and I've come to see those things through the work of the inventory process and working the steps of my sponsor and learning how my stage characters show up and what I was doing in those situations. And you know, as I've done more work and continue to go through this process, I've learned all these cool, fancy names that they have for all that. But really what it boils down to is that very early on, whenever I was young, and I was dependent upon others for my survival, like for me to be for me to be safe in this world, I depended on others. And I think we all come into the world that way. We depend on our parents or people around us or caretakers. And somewhere along the lines, whenever I was young, I needed something from my parents, and I can remember needing it from my dad. I grew up on a farm, and if any of you guys have ever grown up on a farm, you know that's an awful lot of work, right? And so home was not a resting place. Home was not a place where I could go to recover. And then I had a father that loved me to death, and I love my dad, but my dad didn't know how to love a son. He knew how to raise an athlete, and he did that very well. But somewhere along the lines, whenever I was very young, I realized that I needed something from my dad, and he didn't give it to me. And so I set out in my own way at a young age, trying to get what I needed from my dad. And I used that with different stage characters, and I would march the son out there. I would march the professional athlete out there. I would march the humble, I'll do whatever you tell me to do persona out there. Like, I would do all those things just because I'm trying to get love from my dad, right? I'm just trying to get him to give me what I need to be okay. And so I create all of these different personalities and all these different parts of me, and I march them out there just trying to get what I need. And I think when you're a 7-year-old little boy, that's confusing. You know, I do the same thing with my mom. I remember being in the 4th grade, and I had a friend in this little town called Jefferson, Texas, or we're at Jefferson, like an elementary school or whatever. And there was a kid that I was riding the bus with, and I was a new kid in town, because a lot of times I was a new kid in town. And this kid was nice to me on the bus, right? He had some of those BK shoes that were pretty cool back in the day. And so we started talking about those and rapping about those. And I made a friend on the bus on the way home that day. And the next day, we're out by the baseball fields behind the school. And this same kid was over there with a bunch of other kids that I didn't know. And I went up to say hello. And he got a big head around some of his other friends, and he started to pick on me. And he hit me for no reason at all. Well, no reason in my mind, right? Like, that's the lie I tell myself, is that he didn't have a reason. And in fact, he had a bunch of reasons around him. He was just a kid trying to be cool, you know? And yet in that moment, there was a tearing that took place inside of me, same exact thing, right? I needed something from somebody. I needed friendship. I needed acceptance from somebody, and I didn't get it, and I broke. And so I marched the fighter out there, right? And all that just trying to get what I needed. That's interesting. I didn't know that one was going to come up. What ends up happening to me is that I have all these experiences and these different instances in stage characters that I march out there in this need to be okay, in this need to be safe, in this need to be loved, in this need to be held, comforted, and to just not feel bad, right? Like, and so I march all these stage characters out in these different situations in order to protect me. And I send them out as far away as I can. And then what they send back to me is they let me know how they're doing by the emotions and the feelings that they send back to me. This is a fun play that we're having here. But I end up just sitting back and I take in what I've sent out to see am I doing a good job, right? Am I doing okay? Is this situation, is this going to be safe for me or not? And so I keep doing this, and with varied results. And whenever I'm younger, it doesn't work out too well. I make some mistakes, and I don't like the way those make me feel. I really don't like the way mistakes make me feel. So I pay attention. I really pay attention to these feelings, right? I really pay attention to what's coming back to me. And the more I do that, the further I put myself away from you. Whoever, whatever you are, I put myself further and further away because I need to be safe and I need to be protected. And it's much easier to stand over here and look at my feelings coming back over there, and they're getting here, and I can judge it, right? And I can judge it. I did a piece of work just recently, and I'd never seen this judging part of me before. And it wasn't judging like you and how well you're doing and all that good stuff. What I was doing is I was sitting back and judging me. And I was judging the feelings that I was getting from all these stage characters that I sent out. And here was the realization around it, is that somewhere along the lines, I realized that I had become this mess, this collection of emotional reactions to stage characters that I created to keep myself safe. Remember what I said earlier on, like I already am what I'm trying to be. And that realization was powerful, because when all that's going on around me, and I'm getting all these signals and all these things as a young kid, and then I throw some booze on top of that, That fixes all that, right? That fixes all that. There's something that happens whenever I drink. Whenever I pour alcohol in that little play I was describing and all that stuff that's taking place, the back and forth between me and my emotions and all that, whenever I pour some booze on top of that, like I don't really notice that. I don't really notice what's going on with that. In that moment, I can just be me. You know, another friend of mine, Tom, that some of you guys know that I talked with, and whenever I lived in Nashville, we spent some time together, and he was the one that talked to me about whenever he said, you know, Glenn, I don't have an alcohol problem. I have a sobriety problem. And that really is the truth for me. It really is. Yeah. So I get sober, and I don't mean like get sober for good. Like I go through that, I pour alcohol on it, everything like fits from the inside out, and I can become whole and free, and I can play, right? And then I get sober in that moment, and all of a sudden those things come back. All of those stage characters come back. All of those feelings come back. All the emotions come back, and then I'm judging that. I'm trying to keep those, you know, out there where they don't get inside here, and I'm a mess. You know, so I have to drink again. And the same thing happens. I pour alcohol on that, and man, it just goes away. And I can be one, I can be complete, I can be whole. Like my sponsor said, I can be anything, I can be anyone I ever met. You know, I can do that whenever I drink. And it's when you take that away that I'm in trouble. So anyway, like growing up like that, like I became a human doing instead of a human being. And I went out there and did a lot of stuff to try to like calm that. I found that, like, you know, drinking helped that, but doing helped that too. I can go out there and do a whole bunch of stuff. And if you're so concerned with what I'm doing, maybe you won't look at me and who I'm being. And so I went out and did a lot of things. And I found out early on that I had a knack for this tennis thing. And so I went out there, and I'll tell you, one of my most powerful stage characters that I brought to this game was the tennis pro. I brought that stage character around, and sometimes he's still there, and I have to watch out for him and honor him and tell him, no, thank you, not today. But it was a powerful character for me back in that day. And I learned that if I performed really well in the tennis court, that I would get a lot of those things that I was looking for. I would get love, I would get acceptance, I would get this adoration, right? Like, man, I can get drunk on adoration. So let me ask you guys this, and you guys are way more spiritual than I am. You're way more emotionally sober than I am. So you probably have never had this thought before, but I desperately want my sponsor to approve of me, right? Like I remember getting in, like oh my gosh, like my sponsor was like, he was up here, I was down here, even though he was like 5 foot, right? He was up here, and I just looked up to him, and I wanted to be able to sit in a meeting, all right, and share the most beautiful share in the world, right? I mean, I'm talking about tear jerking. You got like, I got tears rolling down my face. The chairperson is about to close the meeting because there's nothing that can take place after that. We got the two twins are crying in the background over there because it's just shattered their earth. And I look up and I see my sponsor across the meeting, and he's looking at me and he gives me the nod. That guy, you know, that's what I want, right? I can get drunk on adoration. That's what I want. It's another reason why I have to try to not try whenever we're doing things like this, because I am an approval seeker, right? I am an approval seeker. I'm always trying to find out who I am and what I am by your reaction to me. So anyway, I go through life collecting all of these external influences that are trying to keep me somewhat sane and somewhat sober. I have this, you know, I do this tennis thing, and people are looking at me and saying that guy's got it together. That guy's doing good. And I'm like, really? All right, cool. I must do that more. So I did that until I couldn't do that anymore. And I say I couldn't do that anymore. I mean, I was doing it like 8-10 hours a day, every single day. And y'all, I will tell you this, there is absolutely no secret to becoming a tennis pro. If you do it 8 to 10 hours a day, every day for the majority of your life, you too will become a tennis pro. It is not that hard. It just takes some commitment. And so I did that for a really long time until I got to the place where I was surrounded by people that were better than me. And that will also happen. I think we do this thing long enough, no matter what this thing is. And we get to a place where we run into someone that's actually better than us. And I think that's totally okay. 100% okay. But at that time, I didn't feel like that was okay. I wasn't getting the same adoration. I wasn't getting the same approval. I wasn't getting the same just like acceptance from those around me. Instead, I was getting more like condemnation. Like, how come you're not pulling your end of the bargain, right? Like, Glenn, I need you to win that. I need you to win this match. Here's how skewed my perception is. I had a coach tell me one time, I played this guy, this little German guy. He's a lefty. And I played him 4 times in a year, all in tournaments. And in each match, it was so close. I mean, like, it was either a break in each set, like a tiebreaker, like, I mean, just all 4 matches just went down to the wire, right? And in all 4 matches, I lost. And my coach came to me, and I think it was like in the tiebreaker in the 3rd or 4th match. And he's like, damn it, Glenn, like, we need you to pull this one out. Like, you need to beat this guy. And I didn't. Here's how skewed my perception is. Like, immediately, whenever I lose to that guy, I go in and I think there's something wrong with me. Even though whenever I would coach and I would talk to other students, I'd tell them that you have no control over wins or losses. You're powerless over that, right? But in that moment, right, whenever I lose that, I go inwards and I think there's something wrong with me. I think that I'm not good enough and that I should be able to win that match. And that's how my perception is so skewed. I cannot see the truth through the veil of my feelings and the way that I'm perceiving myself, right? I cannot see the truth. And here was the truth in that moment. Like, that coach, he needed me to win that match because his job was on the line. And there's another little bit of the truth, right? I'm sitting over here after losing all 4 of those matches against that guy, kicking my own ass, thinking that I am not good enough. And guess what? That guy went out and won nationals that year. Was the #1 guy in the country. I guess that guy was pretty good. Maybe there wasn't anything wrong with me after all. I can't see that. So if I march a stage character out there and I march a person out there that is trying to get a result and I don't get it, whenever it comes back, I try to work on it, fix it, change it. You know, through a series of unfortunate circumstances and putting a whole bunch of other people in charge of my life, I found myself needing to get sober. Whenever I got sober, I thought that it was going to be beautiful. I thought it was going to be wonderful. I thought that all my problems were solved, and I thought that I was going to finally be the person I always wanted to be. And so that first year sober was fantastic. I went around making amends. I was, you know, Mr. AA and like 4 meetings a day. And that's a lie. It was more like 2 meetings a day at least. And just going around and trying to sponsor everybody, including my family and kids and all this good stuff. And I just thought it was going to be fixed. Like, I thought that I could be the person I wanted to be. And y'all, there was some power early on in that I could believe that lie and live in that lie. And I felt good, right? I felt good. And then the thing started to change, right? Like, I started to run into me again. you know, I would get into a relationship, and relationships are a lot of fun for a person like me because it's where I get to test out stage characters. Man, being married to me or being in a relationship with me is a scary deal, right? Because you never know which stage character I'm going to march out there. And some days it's pretty good, right? Some days I'm making you breakfast and I'm kind, considerate, loving. I'll watch the kids. I'll get the girls dressed and get them ready for cheer practice and all that good stuff. And the next day, I'm the mountain man that's hiking out somewhere and you can't get me because I turned my phone off and you desperately need me because I gave you that impression yesterday whenever I was the loving, caring husband and father. God, it's terrible to be married to me. I'm just marching these things out here, trying these different characters out. So anyway, there was a point in my sobriety where I was having to go back and make amends for the exact same defects that I was doing drunk. The exact same things I did whenever I was drinking. And, you know, just like those moments that, you know, those mornings when you wake up and for those of you that, that dabbled on both sides of the fence and dabbled in hard goods that were not alcoholic, there was that moment, that morning, whenever I woke up and I felt awful and just terrible and just crappy and kind of like I did after I'd done a lot of those outside issues. But this morning I woke up and I felt awful and all I'd done was drank. Do you remember that realization? You're like, God, I thought it was the drugs. No, I feel the same way drinking. Should I remember waking up one morning and I was 3 years sober and I felt the same way. I woke up and I felt absolutely awful. I felt hungover, like I couldn't look the world in the eye. I mean, this is 3 years sober at working the steps, Alcoholics Anonymous, sponsoring guys, a member of a home group, starting a freaking home group. I had completely hollowed out inside. I completely hollowed out inside the rooms of recovery, inside a tremendous fellowship and surrounded by people that absolutely loved and cared for me. I completely hollowed out because I was trying to be something that I already was. I was trying really hard. You know, there's a line in the big book that talks about we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. I think that hangover that morning, that emotional hangover, whenever I woke up, was the realization that I've been playing God. And I was just as hollow as I was walking into first day of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have an idea in my head of the way I'm supposed to look, the way I'm supposed to act, the way I'm supposed to be. And left on my own, I will do whatever it takes to give you the impression that I believe that I am the person I'm supposed to be. And 3 years sober, whenever I woke up that morning in that emotional bottom place where I was just stuck and I couldn't believe it happened again. I started listening a little bit deeper, a little bit more. And I think through the listening, something got in. There was a piece of me that got filled up. And instead of talking my way into being, I just got to be. And if any of you guys have had that experience out there, then you can probably identify with this. Like some weird stuff started happening afterwards, like really weird things. I started to be a little bit more of an authentic person, just a little bit. And it pissed some people off. See, up until that point, like I was kind of that guy that everybody liked, you know? And kind of like Jim with that disposition, you know, or nervous disposition, but everybody liked him, you know? I was that guy that everybody liked, and I definitely had a nervous disposition that I was desperately trying to keep you from seeing. And I remember telling my sponsor, I was like, man, I think I need to go make amends for this. I need to do this and that. And my sponsor asked me, he's like, Glenn, what do you need to make amends for? Have you told this person like everything that you need to tell them? And I was like, I think so. He said, do you have any new information to add to the conversation? I was like, nope, nothing new. And he said, Glenn, that's good. That means that there's somebody out there that just doesn't like you. And that's okay. I think that's good for you. Shit, that's sponsor talk. I hate that shit. Because see, he could tell I was just trying to get this person to like me again. You know, that's why I wanted to go make amends to get someone to like me. You know, when I get to that place and I'm just that scared little boy again, trying to get people to like me just so I can be okay and get what I need. I'll tell you this story and I'll be quiet. This is kind of a funny deal that just happened. And I got the opportunity not too long ago to put together a little play. And it was a lot of fun. I got to have all of these different people, these really close friends of mine, got a chance to go out and play these stage characters. And it was a blast, right? Like I felt like I was a freaking director. You know, I've been trying to be the director my whole life. And finally someone said, here, you get to go be the director. So I started marching these stage characters out there, and I had so much fun with this play. And I put them all out there and I gave them all their roles to say and everything. And it was just fantastic. They were all doing exactly what I told them to say. It got kind of loud because they all started saying everything they were supposed to say at once. And then, you know, through the grace of a loving friend, they asked me to go get in the middle of it and start talking about the way that I felt and the way that I saw standing in the middle of all those people that were me, telling me what I told them to say back to me. And in all that chaos and all that mess with all these stage characters telling me the things that I'm supposed to be doing, saying, feeling, and all that chaos and all that mess, you know how I felt? I felt right at home. Right at home. It was the most comfortable I'd felt in that whole experience, just sitting right in the middle of all that chaos. You see, that's how I live, right? I used to think this piece of emotional sobriety was that I was going to come in, I was going to get sober, and I was going to have the same emotion all the time. Happy, right? Happy. It's just going to be happy all the time. That has not been the case. It has not been the case. But I truly think that today, in my life, it's not that all that those feelings and things and the challenges and the life things don't happen. And it's not that it's not that I'm like this all the time and just flat. Like, y'all, I'm a full range of feelings and beings and just a loving, caring, flawed, hurt, broken, at times just defective person all the time. That is what I am, you know? And I think the shift that is taking place, and I didn't do it. There's a shift that took place to me, is that today I don't have to change that, right? Like today I don't have to, I don't have to be the sum of all these emotions and experiences and all this stuff and this reaction to all that. I don't have to do that. Like I get to have those funny conversations and play these crazy games that are really just one way, with people going down the highway with lights and flashing and all that stuff. I get to play those games and laugh at myself and have a good time at that. And I don't have to change that today. You know, I can come on here and like desperately want approval from others, desperately seek approval from others, and recognize that part of me and say, thank you for being there and keeping me safe for this long. Clearly it worked, but today I just get to be that. You know, I already am what I'm trying to be. I'll ask you this. Have you guys ever had this experience where you went into a place and you couldn't tell people what you had done? Well, for a guy like me, that's a scary thing. Like I'm the sum of my doings, right? I want to tell you what I've done. I want to tell you about all this crazy stuff that I've done. And I got the amazing opportunity to go into a group of people and actually get to meet them face to face, heart to heart, and not have to do anything, not have to show them what I'd done to prove who I am. It's kind of like if you guys have been on a trip and taking a whole bunch of pictures, and then you get back home and you want to show all your friends like where you've been, and you go around and like you're telling them about this amazing experience that you had, like climbing down this side of this cliff and out on this trail and out and about and just seeing this beautiful mist that came and covered all over the mountains. Here, let me show you a whole bunch of pictures so I can prove my story is true, right? You guys do that? Like, look at my pictures so I can prove my story is true. That's what I was in my life. I was like, look at me. I've done all these things. That means I'm alive. That means I'm a person. That means I'm a being, because look at all the things I'm doing. That's maybe been probably the biggest thing for me recently, is today I just get to be me, all the crazy stuff. I get to have all the emotions. I get to have all the feelings. I get to have all the experiences. I get to hurt people. I get to have people hurt me. Right now, I've got a 19-year-old son that doesn't want anything to do with me, and it hurts me, right? It hurts. And y'all, I get to be hurt today. Like I get to be hurt. I don't have to change that, you know? I'm moving to Austin, Texas. Even though I love the mountains and I want to be in the mountains, where I have to be right now is in Austin, Texas. And I have amazing friends around me here. And I've got amazing groups of people that I love seeing. I have family here that I get to be a part of their lives again. And there's a part of me that's hurt, that wants to be back in the mountains. And that's okay. I get to be that. I get to be confused today. I get to be unsure. I get to be hurt. I get to be a little bit angry, and I get to be a little bit excited at the same time. I get to be really glad today that I get to see my family, my friends. It sure is a lot easier doing that, just being. And I don't know if that's what I don't really know if that's what Bill meant in his essay. I get the emotional sobriety mixed up with freedom sometimes, you know, like I want to be emotionally free, but I think maybe sitting in all those things and all those emotions and all those experiences and just being me at the center of all that and being okay with that and walking through it and feeling all of that, maybe that is emotionally sober. And it is by the grace of God that I don't have to change that today. That has nothing to do with me. I think that's all I have. I think that's it for me tonight. So, Sam, thanks for having me and asking me to come out, and appreciate you guys being there and listening to me ramble. Thanks.
Hey man, that was great, Glenn. Thank you so much. We're not done with you yet. Part of what our process here is that you pick 2 or 3 people to share. Just do the Hollywood Square thing and just pick whoever, however you want to, and then we'll open it up. And people raise hands and they want to share it. So, or ask a question.
Let's see. You know, oh, cool. I talked about him earlier, and I haven't talked to him in a while. I'd like to hear from Tom. Hey, Tom, how are you, man?
Hey, thanks, Glenn. Thank you very much. Thanks for sharing, and thanks for your honesty tonight. How am I doing? I've done better. I got my second COVID shot yesterday, and it's not doing too well. I'm having some reaction to it, so pretty wasted. And but you know, I loved what you said about the stage characters and all of that. And you know, what I've realized is that this deal, you know, and Mary Thayer told me this stuff years ago, that, you know, you grow or you go. And it's not like you get to a plateau and you get to coast with it, you know. And what I've seen is you can fall asleep, you know, thinking you're awake, you know, doing your rote things that you do in AA and everything, and you can fall completely asleep about different things. And you know, the antidote to that is to be transparent, keep your meditation up, you know, keep talking to people and this and that. And, you know, Father Tom said this years ago. He said, I fall asleep spiritually a lot. And he said, and I know I fall asleep as I wake up, you know. So that's been happening with me just lately. And I'm going through some physical stuff right now too. But man, it's great to see you, and thank you so much for sharing. You know, I was reminded when Don Pritz was in prison, and he was doing his 4th step with his sponsor in prison. This is would have been 1968. He said, you know, I really care about what people think about me. And his sponsor said, what the hell do you care what they think about you? They can't put a scrap of bread on your table, you know? And I think a lot of that is, you know, I'm trying to impress people that I don't even like or that I'll never see again. And instead of being authentic and being who I am, you know, I'll go to great lengths to present a stage character, you know? And it's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of work. And it's just so much easier just to be who you are, just be authentic, you know. And, you know, the people that should like you will, and the people that you know, that don't won't. And it's just that simple, and that's all good. It's like you said it. You know, I spoke on a meeting with Russia on Saturday, and Gregory T, some of y'all know him, he's in Indianapolis, he set it up. It was a 2-hour thing. And it was 2 hours on the last part of the 12-step, practice these principles in all our affairs. And it's difficult to do that because you go in these little sentences or spurts that then they have to be translated, and you've got to be sensitive to that and everything. Well, anyway, so yesterday, Gregory called me and he said, man, I'm getting all this incredible feedback from the Russians. You know, they really loved your talk. They're calling you the Grand Master. Some of them are. I said, Well, tell them that in some circles I'm known as the grand asshole. So, you know what I mean? And I think the truth is somewhere in between. But thanks so much, Glenn. It's great to see you.
Thanks, Tom. Really good to see you. All right, let's see. Who else should I want to call on? Thinking I've been missing her on Saturday mornings, and I was talking to a friend of ours, James, about her the other day. I want to hear from Amy K. Amy, hello.
Thank you, Glenn. I don't know if I've got a good enough connection. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay, because it's definitely slow. I appreciate that. I really enjoyed coming to this meeting and getting to see you, Glenn. And I'm only irritated that you chose Austin over Nashville to move to, but I'll get over it, especially in this Zoom era. Well, I've been thinking about this emotional sobriety thing and the trying to become independent of what other people think or how other people are reacting to me, and more dependent on my higher power. And that new slogan of yours, you know, I am what I want to be, I've always wanted to be, I really think is in many ways a great definition of emotional sobriety, which is I'm okay with who I am, but I also want to be better than my behavior in that way can be. I want to be, you know, what would a mature person do in a situation like this? What would a healthy person do in a situation like this? These talks, I haven't been to a lot of them, but different people's to getting to this emotional sobriety. I was here a couple of weeks ago when Lisa S. spoke, and for her, it was all about meditation and prayer. And I guess that was a way to spend more time with her higher power. For me, an awful lot of times it's in keeping my mouth shut before I say something. Just, you know, whether it's cynical, sarcastic, or just to be a smartass. I love being a smartass, and it's just not useful. So I am just, thank you very much for calling on me, and thank you for all the thoughts that this has brought around. Yeah, I want to continue to be on the path of progress. And I also want to be more than aware that that path of progress is not leading towards perfection. Maybe God's beam is perfection, but my path is towards being the role that I've been assigned. Thank you for letting me share.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, I can tell you that your cookies on a Saturday and Sunday morning are definitely perfection. And I really do miss those. It's great to get back to those. Let's
Can't wait.
Me either. Let's see. Hey, I know he's busy. I want to hear from Sam, because sometimes that happens in these deals that, like, you know, the person that's putting it together doesn't get to talk. I want to hear from Sam.
Oh, I'm Sam. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Sam.
And, you know, that was a beautiful share. I got a text during the meeting from my daughter's mother. You know, she's in 6th grade, that she didn't make cheer, you know, and she's just so sensitive, and she works so hard, and she's so pretty. And her mom said she's devastated in all capital letters. And part of me wanted to say, you know, I was just blown away. I'm like, how can you do that to some girl who's in the 6th grade? You know, like, she was just in cheer. She just was cheering. Now you're saying that she can't do that anymore, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I think the important thing is that if you can't fail, you can't play. And we have to learn how to fail just as much as we have to learn how to do other things. Part of me and my emotional sobriety, this whole thing is about learning how to live independent and do things independent of what reaction I'm trying to get. I'm trying to live and give some kind of unconditional love. I'm trying to serve God and how he wants me to serve him. And one of the interesting things I've been working with a lot, sorry, I kept getting all these texts all over my iPad and all this stuff from her mom and all this, but it talks about in the fear inventory in the big book, it talks, just to the extent that we do as he think he would have us, does he enable us to match calamity with serenity? And it talks about my role. And in meditation in the morning now, I'm trying to find out and really seek, what is my role? And I do that on a day at a time, and a lot of times that looks like reaching out to this person or reaching out to that person or sitting with somebody or sponsoring somebody or just listening to your daughter or being there for someone or whatever. And I found that the quality of my existence has been drastically upgraded since I started living my life in the framework of today and trying to serve God and his children the way that he would have me do it. Regardless of trying to live my life to manipulate other people to like me, which I did a lot of. I'm just like, I got exactly what you're saying. I love approval. I wanted to be a circuit speaker in AA. Who wants, I wanted to be famous in AA. I want people to love me in AA, all the stuff. And everywhere I go, I want to be the top of the heap, like, and in that, and, I've tried to do that with money and in AA, be Mr. AA and do this and the other. And one of the best gifts that I've really gotten, I'm 21. I just a little while ago turned 21 years sober. And one of the best gifts I've got is that I can walk, and it's an overused word. I think a lot of people, it's not overused, but it's become kind of cliche, is I can be a real authentic person, and there's a serenity and peace in that doesn't exist in trying to walk around and juggle all these plates and these stage characters and this, that, and the other. I am who I am, and I am a piece of God's puzzle in a way. And I think it's reverse humility when we tell ourselves that it's grandiose to think that God designed us for a purpose, because I believe that God did design us for a purpose. And when I line up with God's purpose to serve God, big things happen for me. Like, when I'm really calibrated towards what God's purpose is for me, and all I do is become that fire hose and they turn that fire hydrant on. Amazing things happen. Like, I am put in positions where it's just really incredible. And there's a huge adventure. And every day is something that I enjoy. I look forward to today. Like, I really look forward to the day that I'm in. I'm not looking forward to next month. And there's a time in my life where I look forward. It was the weekend or tomorrow or tonight or when this is over, when that's over. I really look forward to the day that I'm in and whatever God has in store for me, whatever comes up. And that to me, I love that line in the letter where it says, nowadays my brain no longer races in grandiosity, depression, or elation, and I used to be running one of those bases all the time. I was either racing in grandiosity, depression, or elation all the time. It was always one of those things. And I love what Bill talks about is being a quiet place in the bright sunshine. I used to think that my soul and the rhythm of my life had to be super choppy for me to find joy. And for me, I found that joy when I find that peace and stillness and quiet with God and that security, I think it's security. When my security is coming from God, all these other things can get as choppy as they need to get. And I'm still really chilled out, internally. And I just, sorry I got distracted tonight, but I was I was worried about my little girl. It still breaks your heart to think of, this sweet little person who just tried hard, and, but that's part of life. And I think that we should be able to celebrate the failure, like, hey, that's part of life. Thank God you tried out. Try out again if you enjoy it, I mean, hell, everybody's failed at something. It's when you let your fear of what other people think of you keep you from getting back up. That's when you really fail. So anyway, that's what I got. Thanks, Glenn.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate that. It looks like Lars has his hand up. Come on.
I do. I'm Lars, I'm an alcoholic. It looks like I'm
Lars.
the only one with a hand up. So I'd like to, and I love the talk. Thanks so much for your lead, Glenn. I like how you coordinate your name with Sam, Glenn, and Glenn. So I assume that was some type of magic of some sort, but we are not a glum lot. Let's remember, we are not a glum lot, although often we feel like it. One way to summarize all that, what other people think about me is none of my business. I heard that since like day 1 or 2 of my sobriety. I got a little bit of time, and what other people think of me is none of my business. I can't be concerned with it. And let's remember that we treated, basically alcohol was a solution to a problem I didn't know I even had. It was an answer to a question I didn't know I was asking as to why am I so miserable. And then it was the solution. And I took away the solution. I'm just left with the problem, which is me and all the problems. And then it's staying emotionally sober. I take away the drink and I need to stay emotionally sober. As Bill says in this, and for me, the most important paragraph is suddenly I realized that what the matter was. My basic flaw had always been dependence, almost absolute dependence on people or circumstances to supply me with prestige, security, and the like, failing to get these things according to my perfectionist dreams and specifications I had fought for them. And when defeat came, so did my depression. And Bill was subject to really clinical depression. He had been in depression for like 11 years prior to this, and he was worried about, he wrote this when he was 23 years sober. I don't know if you said that at the beginning, when he wrote this. So he was deep, not emotionally sober when he did that after 23 years. It's a long time. And he was going into a severe depression. And he realized it's largely due to this. We gauge, as you were saying, Glenn, the way we feel, and Sam also said, we determine how we feel based upon other people's reactions to us. And I need to stop that. It's like I am emotionally unsober if my feelings are determined by how you feel about me, you being a person out there. So, but I will be sober if the way you feel about me has nothing to do with my feelings about myself. I'm fine. Like as you said, I already am what I am trying to be. I already am what I am trying to be. That is awfully good. Or I am enough. I am enough as I am now. Assuming that I'm doing some spiritually awake. Whoever talked about that, I don't remember that. Well, that was good. You must stay spiritually awake because a lot of us are spiritually asleep. So I can't be dependent. Think of the things we're dependent upon. Other people, it's ego. And we know we have to smash our ego and increase my sense of humility. But it's ego to say the approval thing. We all seek self-approval, which is people pleasing. And we all seem to have alcoholics. When I say we all, I'm assuming everyone in this room is an alcoholic. And this is common to every alcoholic I speak to. We want self-approval, and we think, most of us think we're a piece of shit. We have self-loathing, low self-esteem, and the only way is like through this approval of others that we're going to feel better. And I have to realize that doesn't match up usually with the facts. So I'm unsober if the facts don't match how I'm feeling. But if the fact like I can do a good job and no, it really sucked, So I have to recognize, okay, I did a good job and feel good about myself. And then I'm not dependent upon, that's the type of dependency that I believe Bill Wilson was talking about there. I also can't be dependent upon like everything, the circumstances outside of me, everything in the environment. Like, well, the great illustration was Sam's daughter not getting onto the cheerleading squad, that could really throw him off, but then he would be dependent upon outside circumstances to gauge his emotional sobriety. So, but I try not to do that. And to wrap it up, I realize I talked for a few minutes. The best way to gauge, so if I'm like that, I'm not emotionally sober. If I'm not emotionally sober, I'm going to drink. That's all I know to do to make them, because I feel rotten. As you went on about, Glenn, that you were feeling rotten. You feel rotten with this. You feel it's uncomfortable. We don't want to feel uncomfortable, so we go to drink. If I drink, I'm going to die. If I drink, I'm going to die. That's what the big book says, the beginning of We Agnostics. So I cannot, so I have to address this feeling, so I don't turn to a drink. And just to say, the best gauge of it actually is to look at the bedevilments. If people know about that on page 52, it lists the way we were before we got sober, which if I can just read this, we had to ask ourselves, should we apply these problems in the same readiness? We were having trouble with personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy. We couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. That's non-sober. So if that stuff is coming back, if I'm feeling that way now, if I have 2 weeks, 2 years, 23 years of not drinking alcohol, and if I feel that way, I'm not sober. I'm just dry or abstinent, as Bill Wilson was at this point at 23 years. And he realized that. So he was feeling all that stuff. You start feeling those things, means I would say that means you're emotionally not sober, unsober, or inebriety, it's sometimes called, and I am at a risk of a drink. If I drink, I will die. Thank you. That's my thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lars.
Peace and love.
Do we have any hands up? Is there anybody who'd like to share, ask a question, make a comment? I thought I saw, let me see here, because I'm going to start picking on people. Oh, Karen. Hey, Karen. Thanks for raising your hand.
Hi, I'm Karen, and I'm an alcoholic.
Karen.
Sam, thank you so much for your service and having this meeting and hosting, and all the persons that are possibly co-hosting with you. And Glenn, thank you so much. There's just so many things that I want to say that I don't even know where to start. So I just want to really keep it so simple, is that I've just been at a place in my sobriety where, I'm 15 years and 7 months sober. And the last couple of months have been experiencing, I guess the only way that I could really, the word that comes to mind is just stagnant. I'm just so aware of it, but I can't seem to get past it. It seems like no matter what I'm doing, and I am doing the work, and I'm reaching out, but it's just strange. And I'm just saying it out loud. And this meeting here tonight has just like renewed me in so many ways. I just wrote things down that you said, that I guess it's like that chameleon, just since I was a kid, it's just that chameleon. And just to know that other people feel that way and have that same, are going through that and experience that, just to know, it's like, you almost feel like sometimes you're the only one that's like that, in the world. But then when you hear other people sharing about it, it's so healing. And I also just wanted to share, Glenn, that when you were sharing about, when you were a child and that happened, I saw that, sometimes when someone shares, you can just see the story. I saw you on the bus. I just saw it, just the colors and I just want you to know, I gave that little boy a hug, as soon as I heard that, I just gave you a hug, because I also went through something as a kid, I went through something like that too. I was hit really hard in the face when I was 10 years old by someone who was my friend, because I got the highest mark in the class on a spelling test. And and I went back there because, there's just things that we go through that leave those little scars, right? Those scars that are just there. And to be honest with you, I wasn't much of a student after that. You know, of course, I found alcohol at a young age soon after that, and, you know, ended up dropping out of high school, but that's another story. You know, but it's just those scars, that just things that happen that can just set our course off of life in just directions. So, you know what, I took notes, and I'm really glad that this is on record. I'd like to find out how I can hear it again and I could share it with others. And I'm just, and Sam, your daughter has a wonderful father, and my heart is with you and her. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda?
Hi, I'm Amanda, alcoholic. Wow, Glenn, listening to you, just at first I was like, where is he going with all of this? But I'd never heard the phrase stage character before. Like Karen, I always considered myself like a chameleon. I would just change my demeanor and my attitude and my clothes and just anything I could to fit in with certain groups. I had, like, in my high school anyways, it was very cliquey. So there were just like different groups all over the whole school. And I was friends with certain people in all of these different groups. So I would just kind of like be a chameleon to whatever group I was in that day or whatever, and never really knew who I was. I didn't have a relationship with my mom. I still really don't. And I didn't know my dad until I was in my 20s and already had 2 kids, and now we don't talk at all. But so I don't know. And subconsciously, I was probably looking for all of that attention from all of these different groups of people, even if I didn't really realize it then. And I was always depressed as a kid, and that was just like all that I knew. So being 13 months sober now, and about a month into AA, I am definitely not emotionally sober at all. I don't know who I am. I'm going to be 40 years old this year, and I don't know who I am as a person, because alcohol has always been who I was. It was a part of everything that I did from the time I was 13 until 13 months ago. And it's scary. I love hearing stories like yours and everybody else's, because it gives me hope that I will find out who I am and just kind of be able to live a normal life, because my life has not been normal as much as I always thought that it was. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get to the point where I can just be like a real person without having to have alcohol in my life. And I don't know, just thank you. Thank you for your whole story, because it helped a lot. That's all.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. And then we have, it looks like we have, oh, what about Allie G? Did Allie G raise her hand? Maybe, maybe not. Going once, going twice. What about Ed from Philly?
Hi, my name's Ed. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Ed.
I recently signed on to this meeting at the recommendation of my sponsor, and it's been tremendous. There's so many things that struck me that were said tonight that my head's spinning. and I take notes during the meeting so I can look them over later on. Glenn, your talk was tremendous. And I'm going to go back to the first thing you said about the high beam thing and how you prepped yourself, anticipating that somebody was going to flash you with your body language, your tension, your hands on the wheel, the whole thing. And it reminded me of what I do emotionally. And I do this all the time, especially with people who I know well, one of which is my wife, and who do things all the time that really aggravate me and take me out of my comfort zone and my balance. I anticipate, I mean, knowing it well, knowing them well, I kind of know when there's a situation where they're going to do one of those things. And I anticipate it and react to it in my head and play the whole thing out where I get agitated or I, go to another space or in the house or whatever. But they didn't do it yet. So basically, I'm torturing myself by doing that. And I'm trying to get a grip on that. Another thing that struck me is what Sam said about his daughter. I have 7 grandchildren, and when something doesn't go their way, and they're all wonderful kids, it breaks my heart. But you're right that kids have to learn how to handle failure. And it reminded me of a woman named Joy, who probably a lot of you are familiar with. She invented a product called Spanx. It's something to do with women's clothing. And I saw her interviewed one time, and she said something that her father did that I thought was terrible before I got it. And she was always playing with stuff and trying to figure something out, trying to invent something, sometimes investing money, running with it till it failed. And her father would ask her, "What have you failed at this week?" And I thought that was a terrible way to beat a kid down. But that's not the point she was making. He was trying to help her grow. And eventually she did this thing with Spanx. I think she was cutting up pantyhose on the floor and doing stuff with it. And today she's the richest female entrepreneur in the world. And that story was tremendous, all because of how her father tried to help her handle failure. And the third thing is what Karen said. When you said what happened to you, I almost started crying. You were punched hard because you were smart. I was bullied throughout grade school for 8 years because I went to grade school in the 50s and it was Catholic grade school, which was really difficult. And the stories about that era are legend with nuns and everything. But kids can be very cruel. And they had this thing called the highest general average. And every year, at the end of the year at assembly and church, they would announce the kid who had the highest general average. And every year it was me. And I wish that they would stop doing it because I would just get beat up more. So I was punished for my intelligence. Sometimes I tried to get a lower mark in tests so I wouldn't get that designation. And that's a terrible thing to go through. And I know when I got out of grade school, I had PTSD, and that's long before they had the DSM-6 and the whole alphabet soup of mental illnesses and all that. I had wicked low self-esteem and lived with it for a long time and still have some of it. So this meeting is so powerful. That's all I have to say. I don't want to take up too much time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, guys. Kimberly, I don't want to do this to you. Give me 2 seconds. You got it? Can you do it in 2 minutes?
Yeah, I just really want to say that what Glenn has brought to me is that emotional sobriety equals this emotional awareness. And I love that as we work through this program, especially as we look through this essay and these workshops and these different people that allow us this opportunity to look at becoming aware in these different ways. And Sam, I think, you brought to light something really important, that in order to know the successes, we have to know some of those failures. In order to know that I didn't like the characters that I was presenting to the world, I had to sit in some pretty dark places with the characters on the stage. And I think that that emotional sobriety piece and that dependence on the outcome, when you get to this spiritual awareness and you open to that sunlight of the spirit and you definitely get to that place, and I'm going to wrap this up in 1 second, it's that is where you get to sit in the stillness of the day and say, I'm open to this. And when you are open to that, you're not dependent upon the results. And that is the most amazing gift that you guys have shared with me through these workshops. Thanks so much. That's all I got.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Glenn. Thanks for tonight. Anything you thought about that you wish you would have said, or any afterthoughts you'd like to add?
No, I don't. I just appreciated everybody sharing and being a part of this, you know. I think just being here is pretty outstanding.
That was a good time, and thanks for coming on here. I know it's tough after an all-night drive and all that stuff. You're probably pretty fried, and I should have thought about that before I asked you to speak, but I appreciate you. You still brought it, man. You still brought some meat. Love you. Thank you. The way we close this up is we just mute up. We go to our inner room, say the Lord's Prayer to ourselves, for all who care to join, and thank you for a good meeting. Thank you guys for a great meeting. Great job tonight, Glenn.
Awesome.
Thanks, Glenn. Good to see you.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Glenn.